All right, Mr. L, you can call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Mickey Lane. Miss Miss Lane, you're a St. Francis Ministries Permanency Specialist.
Yes, sir.
And in that capacity, are you familiar with Saros Jan?
Yes.
And where is Saros currently?
Okay, hang on. Is mom, I want to make sure mom is logged in. I don't see her on camera. Let's make sure we've got her. Okay, all right, sorry, Mr. Alley. Okay, Ms. Ann, yeah, you need to remain on camera if you can.
Miss Lane, where is Saros currently placed?
In a foster home, Texas.
And is she placed there with one of her siblings?
Yes, her half younger brother.
Okay. And is it a half or a full child?
I mean, full. I'm so sorry, full.
Okay. But that case is not before this court today. It's in a whole different county, in a whole different situation.
Yes.
Okay. In our case, let's remind the court, how old is Saros?
She's now 3, or she's about to turn 3.
The department became conservator in October of 2021, and St. Francis Ministries began working for the department in March of 2022.
Correct.
And how long have you been involved with Saros's case?
I received the case end of July.
And how is Saros doing in her current placement?
She is doing extremely well in her current placement.
How long has she been in that placement?
She was placed there December 9th of 2022.
Prior to that, where had she been placed?
She was with Jerica, another foster home.
And was she placed in the current foster home in order to make it more accessible to Miss Yan and Mr. Yan?
Yes, along with both siblings being in the same home.
Is that current placement meeting all of Saros's needs at this time?
Yes.
Is she got any special issues or special needs currently that need to be addressed?
No.
Is the current placement, have they expressed an interest in having Saros long-term?
Yes.
And is permanency always a goal in these cases?
Yes.
Are there any incidents of domestic violence in the current home?
With the foster parents?
Yes.
No.
And do they have any history of substance abuse?
No.
Do they have any history of criminal history?
No.
Charlie and Sarome Yan have a history of domestic violence?
Yes.
That goes back a number of years for a number of children that aren't involved in this case.
Correct.
Can you explain the reasons why the Saros was removed from Charlie and Sarome in October of 2021?
My understanding during the removal, Charlie had received assistance from North Dakota to move to Texas to a more safer location due to domestic violence with Sarome. And of course, we ended up getting called because Sarome brought Saros to Charlie, and there was domestic violence concerns, and Sarome moved down to Texas with Charlie after that was done.
Would you agree with me that there was domestic violence before the child was removed between Sarome and Charlie?
Yes.
And that domestic violence, whether it's physical or emotional abuse, arguments, those kind of things are dangerous to children the age of Saros.
Yes.
Now, so would you agree with me that the environment that Charlie and Sarome had the child Saros in was a danger to her at the time that we removed the child?
Yes.
Who was the caseworker prior to you becoming involved in this case?
Kristen Davis and Haley Hamilton.
And is it the general practice business practice of St. Francis Ministries to maintain written records of all the contacts for any children in the case that St. Francis Ministries worker is working on.
Yes,
You have to write down what happens at or about the time it happens.
correct.
And you do that so that you can refresh your memory at the time that you may need to look at what has happened in the past.
Correct.
You, as the St. Francis Ministries caseworker, pharmacy specialist, are the actual keeper of that file. You have access to all of those written documentations.
Yes.
Are you aware that there was a family plan of service that was ordered by this court in December of 2021 for these parents to work?
Yes.
Have you seen that family plan of service?
Yes.
All right, I want to start with Sarome. Sarome asked to maintain stable housing that's free from drugs and violence.
Yes.
And do you know, has he maintained a home at this point in time?
Yes.
Okay, now let's talk about that. He and Charlie are living in Lubbock,
Yes.
and is that do they own that home or is it a rent property?
They're renting.
And do you know who's on the lease?
Charlie and Sarome.
Okay, and recently has Mr. Yon left the home?
Yes.
When did he leave?
The last time he left and came back, I received text messages on February 8th from both parents stating he had moved to Houston.
Do you know how long he was in Houston?
From my understanding, I got told the day he got back, I think about maybe 2 weeks.
So that would have been about the 22nd of February.
Yes.
Did Mr. Yon tell you why he moved to Houston?
Yes.
Why did he tell you that he left to move to Houston?
He stated that he was separating away from Miss Charlie because they felt it was best. And so that he could work and get on his own 2 feet with his family.
And then he moved back at the end of February and has been.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the leading from Mr. Albee if the witness could testify to what she knows, not what Mr. Albee is telling her.
All right, so Mr. Abbey, don't lead the witness, so I'll sustain.
How long was Mr. Yon? How long has Mr. Yon been back in Lubbock?
I received a message that he was back on February 22nd.
Okay. As part of the service plan concerning his home, was there anything about chaotic lifestyles added?
Yes, it said no violence or drug use and stable housing.
Okay. Mr. Yon was also ordered to complete irrational behavior therapy. Is that right?
Yes.
Has Mr. Yon completed rational behavior therapy?
The parents stated they have, but I have not gotten record or response to prove that it's there.
Have you attempted to contact?
I do have one right here. I have paper right here saying that I completed it.
Objection.
Hang on, you and your attorney will cover that, I'm sure. You'll have your opportunity, but you just don't interrupt before we're taking another witness's testimony.
So, Ms. Lane, have you attempted to reach out to Troy Timmons?
Yes.
Was Mr. Timmons the counselor that was listed on the service plan?
Yes.
Was Mr. Yon requested to maintain a consistent and stable source of income?
Yes.
Has Mr. Yon, is Mr. Yon working?
As far as I know, no, he's not.
Have you asked him if he's working?
I have not asked him this past couple of weeks since he's left Houston.
Prior to going to Houston, did Mr. Yon have a stable source of income?
No.
Has he provided you with a stable source of income since he got back to Lubbock?
No.
Was Mr. Yon ordered to work or complete BIP classes?
Yes.
What are BIP classes?
They are classes to help individuals with domestic violence understand patterns and help them change their behavior.
Based upon the history between Mr. Yon and Mrs. Yon, would you agree with me that BIP was vital importance in this case?
Yes.
As the testimony from Ms. Burns earlier was that he only completed a portion of his BIP classes, but he tried twice. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
So he has not completed those classes.
Currently, no.
He was asked to complete a Padre class.
Yes.
What is Padre?
Padre is a parenting class for people who abuse drugs and are involved in domestic violence.
And did Mr. Yon complete a Padre class?
I haven't received a certificate for him at this time.
Was Mr. Yon asked to complete parenting classes?
Yes.
Has Mr. Yon completed any parenting classes?
Yes.
Was Mr. Yon requested to do random drug screens?
Yes.
Has he been cooperative with you in completing random drug screens?
Yes.
Records I reflect show that for the most part, since January of 2022, he's been negative on those random drug screens. Is that what your records reflect?
Yes, sir.
He was asked to complete an OSAR or other type of evaluation for drug dependency.
Yes.
Did he complete that?
Yes.
And has he followed through with the recommendations from that?
Yes.
And that would include NAAA type classes?
Yes.
And do you know if he's doing that?
He did not provide me a record, but he had talked about his classes to me on several occasions in person.
At this time, we're not really concerned about his drug usage currently.
Correct.
He's had a past issue with that, but that's not been one of the issues you've had to deal with.
Correct.
He was ordered to complete individual counseling.
Yes.
His first counselor, Cynthia, testified that she wasn't able to complete counseling with him. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And he's now going to counseling with Mr. Lawson.
Yes.
Why did he switch?
He stated he did not feel comfortable with Miss Burns and that she was hard to schedule with.
Was that the only reason that you're aware of?
Yes.
Do you, in your mind, believe that he has completed his individual counseling with either Miss Burns or Mr. Lawson?
He has not finished.
Does he exercise visitation regularly with Soros?
Yes.
And how does that visitation go?
Most of the time they go very well.
When you say most of the time, tell me what that rings bells with me. What does that mean, most of the time?
At one of the visits, March, the parents had gotten upset at there was an incident that occurred.
Okay, let's talk about that. Were you present?
I was not, but I was informed of everything.
Okay, did you talk to Sarone about the incident that you're discussing?
I do believe we had discussions over it as well.
What was his response to your concerns about that incident?
They just stated they no longer wanted that parent support worker to work with them and not to be coming to the house unannounced.
Was that because there was a conflict between the parents and a department worker?
Yes.
Do you believe that Sarome Yon has knowingly placed or knowingly allowed Saros to remain in conditions or surroundings which endanger the physical or emotional well-being of Saros?
Yes.
Do you believe that Sarome Yon engaged in conduct or knowingly placed the child with persons who engaged in conduct which endangered the physical or emotional well-being of Saros?
Yes.
Do you agree? Well, first of all, before I ask these questions, the status order that was made in December ordered that Mr. Yon work the services that we talked about.
Yes.
Those are orders that the court makes specifically designed to alleviate the concerns for the removal of the child.
Yes.
The department has had custody of this child for more than 9 months.
Yes.
And part of the reason that Saros was removed from the children.
I'm gonna object to leading again.
Change.
Okay. Whose fault was it that the child Saros was removed?
Charlie and Saromians.
Do you believe, or do you have an opinion as to whether or not it's in the best interest of this child for
I
the?
would object to this witness giving an opinion, Your Honor.
All right, I'm gonna let him finish his question. And then I'll rule on that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not it's in the best interest of Saros for Mr. Yon's parental rights to be terminated?
I'm going to
Go ahead.
object to that question as she is not an expert and has not done a custody evaluation on this family.
All right, I'll sustain as to that, as to the ultimate conclusion
Okay.
of termination or not.
Have you observed these parents on a regular basis since July?
Yes.
What have you observed about their relationship?
My observation from the relationship and my dealings with the case, Charlie and Sarome are both very much love Saros and their children. However, they will go for a couple of months where they're not fighting and they're doing really, really well. And then they will begin to fight again, which causes Saros turmoil emotionally, possibly physically and mentally.
Based upon your observations, do you believe it's safe to return Saros to them at this time?
Not at this time, no.
We talked about Sarome. Let's talk about Charlie. Was there a court order for Charlie to work services also?
Yes.
And she also signed a family plan of service.
Yes.
And Mr. Sarome, just to make sure, Sarome Yon signed his family plan of service also.
Yes.
And that they actually signed the same family plan of service.
Yes.
We talked about the home that Charlie and Sarome have, and that's a rent home, and that's been their home for some time
Yes.
in Lubbock. When did they move into that home? Do you know?
January of 2021.
2022, probably.
Yes.
And is it your understanding, or what is your understanding of how Charlie and Sarome were able to find that home?
They went through with the housing authority, is my understanding.
Was Miss Yon also requested to complete rational behavior training?
Yes.
Has she?
I do not have a certificate to show. However, she states she has, and Troy did not answer me.
Okay, so have you reached out to Troy Timmons?
Yes.
And Mr. Timmons was the name or the counselor that was referred to for the rational behavior training?
Yes.
Miss Yon is wheelchair bound.
Yes.
Do you know if she receives any source of income?
SSI is or disability.
And has she provided confirmation that she receives her SSI?
Yes.
Miss Yon was ordered to work or complete a parenting class?
Yes,
Has she completed a parenting class?
yes.
When did she complete that parenting class?
She's done 2, I believe. She completed the Padre and sent it yesterday to me.
She was also ordered to random blue drug screen.
Yes,
And
and
she did.
I'm so sorry. She completed the first one, March 1st, 2022.
Thank you. And has she been complying with random drug screens?
Yes.
And what are the results of those random drug screens?
Since February 16, 2022, she's done UAs and ETGs, which is alcohol testing, and they've all been negative.
She was ordered to complete an OSAR evaluation or similar dependence evaluation.
Yes.
Has she done that?
Yes, she did.
Were there any recommendations made for that?
Yes.
And has she followed through with those recommendations?
Yes.
She was ordered to complete individual counseling.
Yes.
And has she completed, I mean, Ms. Warren testified she's done 35 individual counseling sessions with her. Do you believe that she's completed her individual counseling?
No,
Do you believe she's learned from her individual counseling?
I have not seen any behavior changes at this time.
When you say that, how recent has there been issues between Ms. Yon and Mr. Yon?
Most recent was February 8th situation.
And what was that situation?
I was informed that morning,
Objection to hearsay.
Who informed you?
Charlie,
Okay. And what did
John.
Charlie,
Okay.
and what did Charlie inform you?
Charlie informed me that she had told Sarome to leave because she could not take him not changing his behaviors anymore and him mistreating her, and that she did not want her number to be passed to him.
And how did she inform you of that?
By text message.
Did any of that include the I am a part of this? Did she take responsibility for any of that?
Not during that conversation, no.
Since February the 8th, have you had other conversations with her?
Yes,
Has she ever taken any responsibility for the actions that took place on February the 8th?
no.
Were you
Ms. Shirley, let me stop you and clarify. Ms. Lane, you said she told him to leave because she was tired of the way he treated her, and then something about a number, the phone number?
Mr. Sarome or Mr. Sarome and Charlie had both texted me that same day stating not to provide their phone numbers to each other.
Okay, as if they had new numbers or something.
Yeah, yes, and didn't want the other parent to have communication with.
Okay, all right, sorry, I just didn't catch all that. I wanted to make sure I understood. Okay,
So
sorry, Mr. Albee.
based upon those conversations with you, what did you determine was going on between them?
I determined that they had broken up and Sarome had went to Houston.
Have they had other incidents since you took over the case in July where they've been arguing?
Yes,
Have you received additional or other text messages from either party?
yes,
Have you received text messages from Charlie on about threats or violence in the home?
can you repeat the question?
Yes. Have you received text messages from Charlie about threats or violence in the home?
Yes.
How often?
There was an incident in September, there was an incident in January, and then an incident in February, just to name recent.
In any of those incidents that Miss Yon sent you text messages about, did she take responsibility for those incidents?
No,
Who did she blame?
Sarome.
Did Mr. Yon send you text messages about any incidents of violence or arguments in the home?
No,
In any of your conversations with Mr. Yon, has he taken responsibility for the actions that caused them to have a fight?
no,
Based upon what you've observed, has Miss Yon learned anything from her counseling sessions?
Objection
No.
to speculation.
Your Honor, I've asked that based upon her observations.
Yeah, I'll overrule.
And your answer again, Ms. Flame?
no, they still have some work they need to do.
The reasons for the child's removal was both parents' fault.
Yes,
They were both ordered to work services that would alleviate the reasons for the removal.
Objection to leading.
Okay, rephrase, Mr. Abbey. I'll sustain.
Are there orders in place?
there are
Okay.
orders. There are orders in place to help mitigate the removal that St. Francis and the parents had
Objection
constructed.
non-responsive.
I think that is responsive, Your Honor.
He asked if there were orders in place and she said yes.
Yeah, anything beyond her answer, I'll sustain.
What are those orders for?
For services to mitigate the reasons of removal.
Have either parent completed those services?
No,
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge. Mickey, my name is Bailey Sapien. I represent Charlie. I'm new here, so if I ask you something that you already answered, I'm sorry. I'm sure the judge will stop me if she doesn't want to hear it. The first thing I want to go back to is you just testified about the foster parents in this case, and what are their names? Okay. You testified with Mr. Albee that you were aware that the fosters were okay keeping the child long-term. Is that correct?
yes,
Is that a common question you ask foster parents if they are willing to keep a child long-term?
yes,
Would you agree with me that that kind of goes against your reunification goal?
no, ma'am.
Okay. In the beginning of your testimony with Mr. Albee, you talked about the reasons for removal. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And you indicated that it was due to domestic violence. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay, looking at your court report, it was actually because Miss Yan was hospitalized. Do you remember that?
yes. She was also hospitalized during that time as well.
Okay, and so the child was removed because Miss Yan could not care for her due to her hospitalization. Is that correct?
And the past domestic violence.
Do you know the time between her hospitalization and the last incident of domestic violence, how long that was?
Her last hospitalization.
The hospitalization I'm talking about right now that instigated the removal.
I would have to go back and look. There was a domestic violence incident in North Dakota where she, around March 20th, all the way till the 21st, there was domestic violence in North Dakota where she was brought to Texas by an advocate for domestic violence victims to get away from Sarome. And that was in October. Sarome came back to Texas and moved in with her as well.
Can I talk to my attorney?
Yes, ma'am. All right, I'll tell you what, we're close enough to when I said we would break. I'm gonna go ahead and put Miss Yan into a breakout room with Miss Sapien. And then you all, when you're done, you all can take a break. We'll start back then.
Okay, Miss Lane, I'm
Like
gonna
I
go
said, right
to
about
the
5 o'clock.
service plan that you and Mr. Albee were talking about, okay? The first item is that she allow announced and unannounced visits to the home. Is that correct?
Yes,
And those visits were conducted by your department. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay. Her home has remained clean throughout this case, correct?
yes,
Okay. And does she have a bedroom set up for both of the children at this time, to your knowledge?
yes,
You also, the state also asked that she maintain a consistent and stable source of legal income, correct?
yes,
And she has done that, to your knowledge?
Yes.
Do you know how much she is receiving in SSI benefits?
I don't remember. It's somewhere
Okay.
between, okay.
If you don't remember, that's fine. Do you know how much her housing costs?
I believe they're receiving assistance, so it's about 200.
Okay, you think it's 200. Do you know who pays her utilities?
I do not.
Okay. The state also, it was an order of this court that Charlie Yan complete a parenting course, and that was completed on March 1st, 2022, correct?
Yes,
And then she did an additional parenting course, is that correct?
correct.
And was that at the request of the department or her own doing?
Can you rephrase your question?
The second parenting class she completed, was that because you requested it, or how did that happen?
It was initially requested by the department, and they had stated they didn't want to do it, and then she did end up completing it, and I received it yesterday.
Okay, thank you. And she complied with all UA testing that was requested, correct?
Yes,
She has, to your knowledge, maintained sobriety.
yes,
Okay, and she completed her OSAR.
yes,
We've heard that she attended counseling and continues to attend counseling. Is that correct?
correct.
Did she complete her psychological or psychosocial?
She did.
Okay. Through that, was she found to have any DSM-5 findings? Would you agree with me that she was not found to have any disabilities according to the DSM-5 or mental or psychological issues?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So we've gone through the order, and would you agree that Ms. Yan has been in compliance with this court's services order?
There has not been any behavior changes made. No, I would not.
Okay, the services that we just discussed, and I asked you if she completed them, you said correct. Has she completed and complied with her service plan?
No, she has not.
Is changing your behavior somewhere on the service plan?
Yes, our services are listed as services to help you engage to change your behavior. And we do not have evidence of it at this date.
Okay, were you present in the Zoom courtroom when her therapist testified that she has in fact changed her behaviors?
Yes,
It's just that you don't agree with that.
actually, the other service providers don't agree.
I'm asking about you.
I do not. I agree with what I'm being told by my service providers.
Have you done any local checks on the home in regards to calls for service from the police department?
Yes,
Okay. As of 2023, in the year of 2023, when was the last call for service, if you know?
there have not been.
Ms. Lane, you've testified that you had concerns about my client's stability due to Mr. Yan leaving the home. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then you have concerns about Mr. Yan remaining in the home. Is that correct?
Correct.
So from that testimony, whether or not he's in the home, you will interpret that as a wrongdoing of my client. Is that correct?
No,
Well, if he's not in the home and it's wrong, and he is in the home and it's concerning, then when will she be stable in your eyes?
how long? It depends on how long it takes for them to show the behavior changes in their domestic violence cycle.
But what is a domestic violence cycle to you, Ms. Lane?
It is any behaviors where the couple has a history of domestic violence and they go where everything is what they state is a honeymoon phase for a while. Everything's perfect, everything's fine, they're doing great. And then all this pressure builds up from outside stressors, the stress of life. They end up getting into an argument, whether that be physical, verbal, or emotional. They get into a fight, they break up, and then they get back together without addressing everything fully.
Okay, and you were present when our expert testified this morning that that cycle you're referencing requires physical contact. Did you hear that?
I did hear that.
Okay, and since as of 2023, have you had any reports this year of physical contact, of domestic violence physical contact between Mr. and Mrs. Yan?
Objection,
Yes.
instant answer.
Sustained.
You testified earlier about a text message you received from my client. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so is it a common practice for you to tell your families to reach out to you if they're needing assistance?
Yes.
And by my client sending that text message, is that what she was doing?
She was informing me not to provide her number and why her and Sarome had split up.
Okay, so she was doing what you had asked her to do. Is that correct?
Yes.
How long has the child been in care?
Since October of 2021 for the state.
How many times has St. Francis moved her placement?
Twice. 3 times. Sorry.
Okay, would you say that that is a stable lifestyle for the child?
St. Francis wasn't always in agreement to move the child. However, due to mother and father's requesting this last time.
Objection, non-responsive, Your Honor.
Sustained. Just listen carefully to what she's asking.
Is moving the child 3 times stable?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Stevens.
Just to reiterate what you just said, moving 3 times in a year is stable behavior.
Yes. Because it was asked.
No,
of by the-
objection, non-responsive.
Okay, anything after yes
Okay.
is
What does the
sustained.
law, what does the law say that the primary goal of CPS must always be?
The primary is reunification.
Mhm. Now, we heard that my client didn't finish BIP. You testified to that, correct?
Yes.
And you also testified that he didn't finish Padre. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how many hours does one is Padre? How many hours is that?
I believe it's usually a day class.
Objection, Your Honor. If she doesn't know, it would be speculation.
All right,
I'm sorry, Your Honor, that's not a legal objection to my question.
It would be speculation, Your Honor. It's objection based upon speculation.
Then she could have said, I don't know, Your Honor.
All right, I'm gonna let you ask your question again, Ms. Lane. Listen to it carefully.
You mean Ms. Stevens?
I mean, Ms. Stevens, I'm sorry.
How much time does completion of Padre take?
12 weeks.
Okay. So you went from 1 day to 12 weeks?
Yes, my first answer was incorrect. I
Objection to
apologize.
non-responsive?
Overruled. She just said her first answer was incorrect.
Okay. I am currently emailing everyone both of his certificates of completion from Padre. So just 1 second, Your Honor, if you'll give me 1 second, because that's going to be needed to impeach the credibility of this witness.
Ms. Stevens, these were certificates of completion for Padre and what else?
They're both for Padre.
Okay,
The first one is the 8-hour course. The second one is the 12-hour course. He completed both.
I've received them both, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, I also sent it to Miss Katie so that you would have it.
Yeah, I have them in my box.
Your Honor, I would, well, if you don't mind, let me lay a little bit foundation first before I offer. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and offer now. Mickey, do they receive certificates of completion when they complete Padre?
Yes.
Okay. And first you said it was 8 hours, then you said it was 12 weeks, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm going to offer as, do you want me to offer as fathers 1 and 2 or as respondents 1 and 2? How would you like me to offer it, Your Honor?
Probably father.
Okay. I offer as fathers 1 and 2, the certificates of completion from Padre. 1 is showing 8 hours of completion. 1 is showing 12 hours of completion.
All right, council, any objection?
I'll object, Your Honor. It's hearsay. There's nobody from Padre for me to cross-examine to determine if they're actual certificates done at a Padre program.
Anybody else have any objections?
No objection.
Objection.
All right, I'll overrule your objection, Mr. Alley. If you want to ask your witness about whether or not that looks like what she normally sees, that's fine with me, but
Ms. Lane?
Mhm.
Where in the service plan, tell me the page number and paragraph that it says specifically states that changed behavior is required and exactly what change must be met.
Judge, I'm sorry to interrupt. You said overruled to the objection, but you didn't officially admit it.
okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Father's exhibits 1 and 2 will be admitted.
Do you need me to restate that, Ms. Lane? My last question?
Yes, please.
What page number and paragraph in the service plan does it specifically state what behavior changes must be met? Not services provided, but behavior changes.
The service plan is created.
Objection, non-responsive.
Okay, Ms. Lynch, she's asking you for a,
There's
Page.
not a page number.
Okay.
is there somewhere in the service plan that references that?
The service plan is to mitigate the reasons of removal, which requires the behavior changes with the services. The services don't make it through, don't push you. It's not a checklist. You have to be willing to change your behavior to mitigate the reasons of removal with your children. That's why it's court ordered by the judge.
But it does not specifically state, it just states that services must be completed, not any specific behavior change, correct?
Behavior changes go with those services.
Objection, non-responsive.
All right, I'll sustain. Ms. Lane, what she's, I want to make sure she's asking you if there is some language in there that addresses parents modifying or their behavior or mitigating something or.
On the first page of the family plan, we put in there to cooperate and complete and comply with all services and show those behaviors during visitation. That is the wording we use.
So it says that they have to complete services, correct?
Yes,
It does not state what behaviors must change, correct?
that goes along with the service.
Objection, non-responsive. It's a yes or no.
No,
Now, we heard from 3 experts at the very beginning of this hearing. Did you hear the testimony of all 3 experts?
yes,
Okay. So both counselors agreed that there has been behavior changes, correct?
no, they don't all agree.
Okay, I'm sorry, I withdraw that objection. 2 out of the 3 people who testified stated that there have been behavior changes and would continue to be with continued treatment, correct?
2 of them, yes.
Right. Only 1 out of 3 said no, they didn't see any behavior changes, correct?
Correct, the marriage counselor.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. Is a mischaracterization of the testimony. There were 4 counselors that testified this morning. 2 of the 4 said that there were no changes.
I must have blacked out during one. I only heard 3. Okay. So never mind. I'm going to save that for closing. Pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Lane, would it be the case that the reason why that specific behaviors aren't listed as to what needs to be changed is because every case is different
Yes,
and every set of facts are different in every case?
yes,
And wouldn't it be a logical conclusion that if behavior changes weren't to be met, then what would be the point in having to work services?
correct.
On this, did you receive the certificates of completion that Ms. Stevens sent out to you? I haven't seen them yet. Have you got those in front of you?
I only sent them
Um,
to the lawyers.
Okay, wait a minute, I didn't catch all that. Y'all were talking at the same time. Ms. Stevens, what?
I only sent them to the lawyers.
I forwarded it to Nikki, so she has access to it.
On the 8-hour course that was completed, what date was that completed?
Sorry, I'm checking both. Oh, I don't have the 8-hour one. I have a 12-hour one, and that was completed March 1st,
I'm sorry, March 1st of what year?
2021.
And when was that course ordered? That was completed in March of 2021?
I'm sorry, let me pull it up. March 1st of 2022, and it was ordered by the court November at the status hearing.
Okay. And that status hearing was December 16th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Okay, was this particular course, this Padre course?
Okay,
Okay, Ms. Lane, I'm sorry. Look, I think the question that I had for you was this Padre class, was it an in-person class or was it virtual?
Virtual.
Okay. The other classes that the parents, the BIP class, that wasn't completed, correct?
Correct.
Was that virtual or in person?
Those were his were in person.
Okay. The parenting classes have neither parent has completed their parenting courses. Is that correct?
They have completed
They
them.
have. Okay. Are there any courses that they have not completed that were virtual courses?
Just the counseling.
Okay.
Some of their counselors were doing it. And RBT, I still haven't got a certificate to show proof of that.
Okay. Was that a virtual class?
Yes, that's held virtually too.
Okay. And so during the course, this case was filed back in October of 2021. And during the course of this case, of course, Miss Yan, she's disabled, so she's not able to work, correct?
Correct.
All right. And during the course of this case, how often did Mr. Yan work, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, I have known him to work at 2 different places.
Okay.
He worked.
So go ahead.
I'm sorry. He worked as maintenance for I'm not quite sure. It felt like a month. And then he did work in Houston in February.
So with the time these parents had on their hands, is there any reason why these virtual courses that weren't completed couldn't have been completed?
No, sir.
Earlier, you had testified that moving the child 3 times was stable for cirrhosis. Why? That on its face, that didn't appear to be right. Why would that be stable for cirrhosis?
The reason Saros was moved, the first time I was, I'm the custodian of that record, but they moved her to a foster home that had a better relationship with mom and dad for a while, and she stayed there for a while. But the last time she was moved is the children needed to be placed together with her little brother, and the birth of her brother. The new foster home could not keep both children. So Charlie and Sarome wanted both children to be in the same place, and the Native American tribe asked for them to be moved.
And you believe those moves to be in cirrhosis' best interest?
Yes.
Okay. Mickey, the last hearing that we had in this case was on January the 25th of 2023. Is that correct?
Yes.
And at the time of that hearing, the parents, or Saros was in foster care with her brother in a home in Lubbock. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's still the same today. Is that correct?
Correct.
And also the parents were in a home in Lubbock together at that time. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's still the same today. Is that correct? And the testimony back on January 25th of 2023, where the parents were in a cycle of domestic violence. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, sir.
Is that still the same today?
Yes, sir.
At the time, on January 25th of 2023, your testimony was that the parents are at where they were at when when the investigation began. And I think you meant emotionally by that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Has anything changed from January 25th, 2023 up to this point?
No.
You still have reason to believe that they're still in the same cycle.
Yes.
And you were present when Richard Gatlin testified, is that correct?
Yes.
And he testified to the very same thing today about they're in the same place, isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay, as far as Rose is concerned, before she was moved to her current home, in the home before this one, was she making progress?
Yes.
Okay. And then in December, y'all got Rose moved to this home with her brother. Has Rose made progress?
Yes.
Okay. As she was in speech therapy, has that gotten better?
Yes, sir.
Is it remarkably better?
Yes, sir.
And as far as the home that she's in, you've had a chance to observe that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you've observed some visits between Rose's parents and Rose. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And those visits go okay?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as foster care is concerned, they're to the best of your knowledge, they're willing to adopt if necessary.
Yes, sir.
To the best of your knowledge, is foster care wanting Mr. and Miss Yan to continue to be a part of these children's lives?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, does this current placement provide weekly pictures to Miss Yan of the kids?
Yes.
And have they has this placement also set up a Google Voice number for her so she can make contact?
Yes.
Okay. And do you believe those things are in the best interest of Rose?
Yes.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Lane, do you have a copy of the family plan of service that was signed by Mr. and Miss Yan in front of you?
Yes.
On page 3, at the bottom of the page, says danger or worry statements. What does that first paragraph say? It's page 3 of 17.
You want me to read all the dangers?
I want you to read that first paragraph.
The department worries about the domestic violence between Mr. and Mrs. Yan. Miss Yan reported that she left North Dakota because of the domestic violence that was occurring in the home. Mr. Yan has been validated on over 7 times in Cass County, North Dakota. This puts Rose in great danger of being injured during a fight or argument between Mr. and Mrs. Yan. Witnessing fighting between her parents could cause also long-term emotional problems and trauma for Rose.
On the bottom of page 4 of 17, it says goal statements. Can you read that first paragraph?
Mr. Yan will need to mitigate the reason for removal regarding domestic violence, which is why Miss Yan came to Texas. He will need to complete a battering intervention and prevention program in his area. Miss Yan will need to take classes for victims of domestic violence.
Is Miss Yan taking a class for victims of a domestic violence?
She was supposed to be addressing it in her counseling because she didn't want to go anymore. She stated they made her feel uncomfortable in that class.
So my question is, did she actually take a domestic violence class that she was offered?
Then no.
Has Mr. Yan completed a BIP program?
No.
Okay, on page 13 of 17, which is the parents' acknowledgement page, 4, will you read what it says there?
I understand my progress on this plan will be evaluated as follows. Have I completed my tasks in the plan? Have I achieved my goals in the plan? Can I provide for the ongoing safety and well-being of my children?
Okay, so it's required that they understand what's going on and that they learn from their plan.
Yes.
As recently as February the 8th of this year, Was there an argument between the two of them?
Objection leading.
Just done.
Did you receive a phone call in February of 2023?
Yes,
What was that phone call concerning?
it was a text message concerning from Charlie stating that she did not want to, basically, she wasn't, in a roundabout way, she was done putting up with Sarome's behaviors.
Was the text from her, I just got fed up with the way he was mistreating me, using me, so I told him it was just best that we separate because I wasn't going to keep allowing him to just up and leave me knowing I don't have help, but I do have help from my neighbor and I'll be getting a caregiver this, start this.
Yes, that's what I received.
Has Miss Yan's behavior continued to be volatile?
Yes.
Why do you say that it's volatile behavior?
Every couple of, she has not taken responsibility for her part in the relationship with Sarome.
Were the police called to her place in January, no, in July of 2022?
Correct.
Objection leading.
No, I'm gonna overrule that one. They were.
Were the police called in July of 2022?
Yes,
Did Miss Yan text you about that circumstance?
yes,
Did she later recant in a text to you?
I'm sorry,
Did she later recant in a text to you?
that recant,
Yeah, like change her mind.
that they didn't fight
Yes.
on
Well,
that.
Yeah, let's talk about did Miss Yan send you a text in July of 2022 concerning an incident at her house?
Yes,
What was that text?
that Sarome had gotten upset and punched the AC and she had to call police.
Did she ever send you a text saying anything different about that event?
No, I do not remember that
Did
one.
you- all right. Did she ever send you a text about a toolbox?
Yes.
What was the toolbox text?
I had a conversation with Miss Yan after I had spoken to Counselor Holly and Cynthia Bowens before Sarome asked to switch her about a video that was recorded of Charlie and Sarome fighting. I and a parent support worker went out to see the parents in person, and Charlie was talking about how a toolbox was thrown at Sarome. And she later stated in a meeting with the tribe that she did not throw the toolbox at Sarome, she just knocked it off the couch.
In March or the end of February, when Sarome came back, did Miss Yan send you any additional text?
Yes,
And were those claiming something different than what she sent you on the 8th of February?
yes.
What was the difference?
She had text messaged me stating that I told her only to call me so I could gather evidence on her and that I shouldn't be sharing my information with the courts or anybody, that she was just reaching out one-on-one.
Did she
And-
text you that she never kicked Rome out?
Objection leading.
I withdraw. I withdraw.
Okay.
Did Miss Yan ever text you anything concerning the actual after February the 8th about what happened on the 8th?
Yeah, she had spoken to me. She stated they thought they could get their daughter back if they broke up, and that they really didn't break up. They were just taking a time out, and that we were wrong, and we didn't know what was going on.
Has Miss Yan attempted to change caseworkers or fire caseworkers?
Yes, she's asked for new caseworkers.
Do you know how many occasions?
I know she's asked for a new caseworker with me maybe twice.
Has she asked for a new Indian Nation caseworker? Are you
She-
aware of that?
I'm aware of conversations January and Charlie had, yes.
Part of the service plan you testified to was that she has to let y'all come into her house.
Yes.
Has she stopped allowing the courtesy HST in Lubbock to come into her house?
I have not been made aware of that, but yes, she did stop our parent support worker.
I'll pass witness.
Okay, Ms. Sapien?
Thank you, Judge. I just have a few questions. Miss Lane, what is your educational background?
I'm sorry.
Your educational background?
I have a bachelor's in sociology.
Do you have any other degrees or licenses?
I went to college with an undermining in criminal justice as well.
So you do not have any license or degrees that qualify you as an expert in behavior?
Sociology.
It deems you an expert in someone's behavior?
I never said an expert, but it does do with people and their behaviors.
And I'm not saying you did say that. I'm just asking
Okay,
if you are. One other question in regards to the report about Mr. Yan punching the AC. That is not physical violence against Mrs. Yan, correct?
yes, it is. It's intimidation. It's a form of domestic violence which intimidates the partner into
My
being in
question
fear.
is punching an AC physical violence against Mrs. Yan?
Punching an air conditioner is domestic violence.
Objection, non-responsive.
She's trying to answer the question.
I think she's trying to answer the question. I do. So I'm going to overrule.
You can continue, Ms. Lane.
Okay. It's a form of intimidation for domestic violence.
Okay. What about that situation insinuated intimidation?
If someone was upset at you, Miss Bailey, and they went to destroying a room, would you not be in fear for speaking up for yourself?
I'm not asking about me. I'm asking about the specific instance you're testifying about.
It's a control tactic to ensure that the person that is speaking, they don't want to address what they're talking about. So instead they revert their violence into thinking clearly and addressing the aggression in an appropriate adult manner.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
You testified that the foster family still wants the parents involved, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but CPS doesn't want the parents to continue to be involved, correct?
St. Francis CPS, yes.
Does not want them to continue to be involved, correct?
Correct. At this time, it is not.
Pass the witness.
Okay, Mr. Jackson?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Albee, anything else for Ms. Lane?
No, Your Honor.
All right then. Who's your next witness?
I would call January Hawk.